Hey guys, going to give you a quick fishing report for Lake of the Ozarks. It's August 10th. The water level is 659. Been fluctuating a little bit this week, and they're scheduled for light generation all week. I've been driving over the dam quite a bit, this past week, and it seems like in the evenings all summer long they've been kind of cranking up the generation a little bit, which tends to make the bite a little bit better. But we're in the dog days of summer. Water temperature is upper 80s. The lake report said 88 degrees, but it's hot, and the fish are feeling it. It's slowed down a little bit. I just got back from Lake Champlain and getting ready to head back up to New York for our championship this week, but I was able to get out on the lower end of the lake a few days, had a couple guide trips, and just went out goofing around and caught a few fish a couple of days. So just like the rest of the year, the fish have been kind of spread out. They've been doing a little bit of everything. Water level has remained, in that 659, 660 for the last couple months, and there's a lot of shoreline cover available, which makes the shallow bite really good. And usually this time of year, the shallow bite, the bite back in the creeks, starts to heat up a little bit and get a little bit better. You would think the hotter it gets, the deeper these fish go. Well, we've got a really good resident population of shallow fish, and this time of year, the shad migration starts to happen, and the bait fish move in the backs of these creeks, and some of this shallow water becomes really productive. So keep an eye on that. That should start happening here pretty quick. We've been catching fish shallow all year, so that's going to continue. Shallow boat docks are my favorite target this time of year. That they create a lot of shade, they've got a lot of bluegill around them, and it creates just a really good ambush point. A lot of brush piles and cover around some of these boat docks. So that's a good starting point. Look for bait fish, look for anything that creates shade, like a brush pile, a log, any kind of overhead cover is going to be good. Overhanging trees, there's a lot of grass in the water. So top water baits, soft plastics, jigs, things like that. The jig this time of year is my number one bait all through the fall. It's my day in, day out go-to bait when I need to get bites. So the jig is just so versatile. I can fish it in 0 foot. I can throw it in a brush pile. I can throw it deep off of a point. Pretty much do whatever I want with it. Swim it shallow around grass, cover, lay downs, boat docks. So jig is just my number one bait as we go into fall. Day in and day out. So I've been throwing that, of course, like always. Got the Trophy Bass Company Pro Jig on here, and the color is summer craw. We got a lot of bluegill around, and that's really my favorite color this time of year. That and the black and blue will get bit in that dirtier water, but this color right here, day in, day out, represents a bluegill and gets a lot of bites for me when the weather gets hot. So that's been a really good jig for me. Any kind of shade of brown. This one right here is a 5/8. So I was throwing this around brush, throwing it around some deeper docks, off of some points. That 5/8 is a really good all-around size. But up shallow, I tend to use more of a 1/2 ounce around the boat docks, even a 3/8 around really heavy cover and really shallow cover. So 3/8 is a really good jig, especially early in the year. But if you got really thick cover, super shallow water, that 3/8 is a little bit smaller profile and tends to get a few more bites. But I like a 1/2 ounce if I can get away with it. On this trailer right here, I got the Baby Brush Buster from Tackle HD. It's a good little creature bait. Creates a lot of action, but any kind of craw. Tackle HD has a ton of craws. The T-craw is my favorite. Speed Bug's really good. And we've got another little craw that's great on the back of that 3/8 ounce jig. I'm just forgetting the name of it, but check out all the crawdads from Tackle HD. They are all really great trailers, and use them a lot from time to time, just depending on the conditions. That T-craw is my favorite, but the Speed Bug's really, really good too, whether you're swimming a jig or throwing it on the back of a big jig or a football out deep. It works really good. Another thing that's going on right now, besides that shallow bite, is brush piles. When they slack the current off, the brush piles tend to get really good. The jig is one of my go-to baits in the brush piles. as well as a big worm. So right here, we've got the Hog Monster Worm from Tackle HD. This is actually a 12-inch worm. I like to use this when the fish are really aggressive, and I like to use it in low light conditions. Early in the morning, late at night, evening, even into the nighttime. So right now we have a lot of evening tournaments. We fish after dark for an hour or so each time, and right now the fishing after dark should get really good. A lot of night fishing goes on this lake at night, and it produces a lot of big bites. You know, when the fishing's tough during the day and we got a full moon like we're coming into right now, the moon was big and bright last night, these fish don't have a reason to feed as much during the day. So they're up at night feeding all night. So if you want to do that, the night bite can be really, really good. We focus again on brush piles. You know, the fish kind of move a little shallower at night, so shallower brush, cover, you know, boat docks are really good. Areas that are well lit are really good. You know, lights on boat docks can be a real big attractant. You know, we'll fish a little bit shallower on them than we do during the daytime, throw behind the cables and stuff like that. But that can be really fun, and a good way to catch some bigger fish this time of year is probably fishing, you know, early and late and even after dark. But the 10-inch worm here, throwing it around, you know, any kind of brush cover, throwing it around boat docks, cables, things like that. It's one of my go-to baits all summer long, and it gets a lot of bites. So I'm throwing that on either a 1/2 ounce or a 3/8 ounce tungsten weight from Bass Pro Shops, 20-pound Bass Pro Shops fluorocarbon line on both the jig and the worm. I'm gonna have a Hayabusa 5 or 6/0. This is just a round bend hook. It's the 114 model, and this is just a really good offset shank worm hook. This is, in my opinion, the best worm hook to throw when you're throwing any kind of soft plastics. I'm not a big fan of the wide gap hooks myself. This regular round bend hook gets the job done, and this is a really good one. This is the Hayabusa 5/0. I like a 6/0 as well for that big worm, and I use the HD version. There's two versions. There's one that's you know, a little bit heavier dutier for bigger rods, bigger line, things like that. So I use that HD version most of the time when I'm throwing a flipping stick and putting a big hook set into them. That way I don't get any bend in the hook and get all those fish in the boat. But the Hog Monster's been really, really good. There's been a lot of suspended fish. So been seeing a lot of schooling activity in the mornings. These fish are just chasing bait around, whether that's on a point, whether that's in the middle of the lake over open water, the back of a creek. You know, you just got to look for bait fish, get out early, and look for the surface activity. When they come up to the surface, they're schooling for a long time, and these schools move around really, really fast. So they'll be over here 1 minute, they'll be over there 1 minute, and you know, you just kind of got to be patient, move around with the trolling motor, or sometimes just stay and wait for them to come to you a lot of times. But small top waters like a popper, walking baits have been really good. You know, and speaking of top water, the Tackle HD buzzer, along with some bigger walking baits, are going to start really being fun to fish up shallow. It's going to get a lot of bites here as we go into fall. But you know, the schooling fish, smaller the better. A lot of the bait fish they're feeding on are very small, so it's a good idea to kind of match the size of those bait fish. A lot of these fish have been thrown at a lot, and they're keyed in on the size of the shad that they're feeding in on. So, you know, a lot of times they'll ignore a big walking bait as opposed to a smaller one that mimics the shad size that they're actually eating. So smaller topwater has been really good. The Tackle HD swimmer has been really good. I like the 3.5 inch. You know, any kind of white or translucent type color has been getting some bites. 1/4 ounce jig head on that. Throwing a Hayabusa jig head. Been really, really good. Creature baits. A lot of bluegill right now. I was throwing one on the back of my jig, but this brush buster, this 5-inch brush buster from Tackle HD is a really good choice. Same Texas rig setup that I'm gonna have with my big worm. I'm gonna vary the weight a little bit, you know, anywhere from, let's say, a 1/4 ounce up to 3/8 on the creature bait. If you get some really big creature baits, like we have here. Oh gosh, falling out of the pack. But we've got the centipede from Tackle HD, and this is always a really, really good bait. This is the 7-inch one. This is actually the Megamite. I called it a centipede, but it's a Hellgrammite, and this is a great little bait. Throw that on there to catch some really big fish. Tried it on a shaky head, works good. 3/8, half-ounce shaky head on that Hellgrammite. That's a great bait this time of year if you're looking just to do something a little bit different, get a bigger bite. These fish want a large meal this time of year. The bait fish have had a chance to grow up, over the course of the year. Crawdads are getting bigger. These bluegill are up shallow, so they're eating big baits. If they want to expend energy to get a lure, they're going to go for something big. So, throwing something like that Hog Monster Worm or the Megamite is going to get you some bigger bites. I like those darker colors this time of year. Purples are always my favorite, but a lot of bluegill up. So green pumpkins, watermelon red, things like that have been working as well. But the soft plastic bite has been pretty much the way to go, whether you're fishing brush piles, points, docks, things like that. The soft plastic and the jig has been the way to get bites, and that's going to continue for the next month or two. As the water starts cooling down, you're going to start seeing these fish actively feeding and doing a lot of different stuff. That Tackle HD square bill bite's going to start picking up. That's one of my favorites as we go into the fall, as we see a lot of bait fish on the surface and these fish are chasing. I can cover a lot of water with that, especially the dirtier the water. So, if you're fishing in the Nianguas, if you're fishing in the back of the Gravois, in the back of the Glaze, if you're running up in the river arm of the lake, up the Osage, anywhere, past the 35-mile marker, you're going to run into some more stained water situations. There's more visible cover up there in the form of laydowns and things like that, a little bit less development on the lake. So, the less boat docks, the more you can get kind of closer to the bank and be more effective with that square bill or crankbait that you're using. The spinnerbait bite's going to get really good. We've got a couple great spinnerbaits from Tackle HD. We've got the CS2 spinnerbait, which is just more of a traditional style spinnerbait, very natural look, has a light wire, gets a lot of vibration, a lot of bites. I'll use that in real clear water conditions when I'm trying to really mimic those shad, and we get some dirtier water situations. I'm going to lean more towards the Ozarks Flash. Typically I lean more towards that anyway. It's a confidence bait for me, that it has painted blades on one side, a unique look that a lot of guys aren't throwing, or I feel like a lot of guys aren't throwing anyway. It's getting more and more popular now, but it's a staple here in the Ozarks. It gets a ton of bites, and it's a confidence thing for me. So I feel like I can go behind people or maybe show them something that these fish haven't seen before. But that Ozark Flash spinnerbait, actually caught a few the last few times I've been out on it. It's a bait that this time of year, as we get into fall, the bites you're gonna get are gonna increase, but this time of year, I'm basically running it through shad that I see, bait balls, things like that, shallow around boat docks. Those really shallow boat docks are a great target for that spinnerbait, but it's a bait that you may not get a bunch of bites on it, like say the Tackle HD square bill, but you're gonna get some big bites. You're gonna catch those 4 to 6 pound quality fish that you're looking for here on the Ozarks. So that's gonna really start heating up. But it's a fun time of year. Things are changing. We've got some cool mornings the last couple mornings, and had a couple cool days. We're in the 80s today, and it's starting to feel like fall a little bit. So these fish are gonna be on the move. Mentioned that we're going to have some light current generation this week that's forecasted. So, and that varies day to day how much they're pulling through the dam. But that generation through the dam there is going to help the bite a little bit. So, it'll make any bite that you're doing good, whether it's a shallow bite, the brush piles, things like that. But, those main lake fish can really feel that current first. And so keep an eye on some of those main lake points, things like that we've been focusing on all summer. Idle over them. I'm using my Garmin electronics and my live scope to kind of judge the activity out on places like that. And it doesn't take a lot of time. I can usually idle over them with the Garmin Eco Maps, see if there's any fish there, and then turn around and look on my live scope once I drop the Garmin Force trolling motor, and really look around and kind of see what's going on. That'll let me see the bait. It'll let me see if those fish are actively chasing the bait. And oftentimes I can tell what species they are, or if I can even catch them by how they're relating to the bottom or in the water column. So, I want to idle over those points, see those fish close to the bottom and see a lot of them there. And usually if I can find that, we can catch a few. So it's keep an eye on some of those main lake points and secondary points and things like that. Those secondary points are always good places to look when the fish are on the move. So they're good stopping points, and they always hold some fish. So a lot of things going on this week on the lake. I'm getting ready to hook this nitro up and head up to New York. We've got our championship on the St. Lawrence River, and practice starts on Saturday. So I got to boogie up there and try to find me some winning smallmouth. Should be a really fun tournament. So good luck to you guys. I know we got some tournaments coming up here on the lake. We got a big one, the Bass and Bob Summer Sizzler this weekend. I believe that's out of Red Oak, so that's a really good area of the lake, kind of their mid-lake, around the 30-mile marker or so guys can kind of spread out and fish whatever arm of the lake they'd like. So that should be a fun tournament. But good luck to you guys out there. I'm going to go up north and escape Missouri for a couple weeks, try to catch some big smallmouth and come home with a big paycheck. So good luck to everybody, and see you guys in a couple weeks with another report. Thanks.